And take a Greg.
Welcome everyone. It's 6:25 on Monday night, and you're listening to the 243rd installment of the Age Out Angels Radio Hour, right here on www.hamiltonradio.net Channel 2. I'm your host, Greg Rapport. If you're new to the show, I'm the founder and executive director of Age Out Angels. We provide one-to-one mentors to vulnerable youth for the purpose of coordinating the care and services that they need to thrive. We try to help young people avoid some of the horrible pitfalls that they're likely to face when they don't have a proper safety net. And this program is brought to you every week at the same time, courtesy of all the fine people here at Hamilton Radio who allow us to use this airtime. Ruben is on the big board tonight. Robin is producing. So good to have both of you with me every single week. You guys have been wonderful this year. This is our last show, so I'm feeling a little on the sentimental side. I hope you all can live with it tonight. And so good for all of you for listening from your computers, in your cars, in New Jersey, around the country and beyond. Hey, please take a moment right now. If you're looking at us on Facebook or on YouTube, whether it's today or tomorrow or the next day, and hit all the buttons for me. We need you to like and subscribe and share, because what we're going to talk about tonight is relevant to everyone in your world. There is not a single thing that we're going to talk about here tonight that where you live is exempt from. Everything that we're going to talk about happens everywhere. And one thing I guarantee you is that this is not going to be on the nightly news. So this needs to be shared. We need you to help us share it, okay? So please do that. Hit all the buttons for me. Tonight we're going to focus on foster care. You know, when it comes around to the holidays, that's when I start to think about the way the holidays affect people who don't have the wherewithal to participate fully in the holiday. And I think everyone's felt this. Like, I think every single person who's out there has had like one Valentine's Day when they were all alone. It had to happen. You know, you could have been 12, you could have been 25, you could have been 50, who knows? But everyone had one Valentine's Day when they said, oh man, nobody loves me. So you know how that felt. You know how that felt for a moment. I will tell you that something that I noticed was when a child is living outside of their parental home, there's not a lot of love that gets exchanged. I think a lot of times the best a foster child can hope for is to be tolerated. Now there'll be some lucky ones, I guess, who are in a situation where they're loved, and they'd be doubly lucky because they'd have to be able to accept that love as well. I know there's a lot of youth who are in foster care who don't really want to get that close to a foster family because they pray all the time that their own family will be reunited. It's a complex thing, you know. It's not just one thing or the other. For individual people. And we need to focus on those nuances tonight. We need to know who are the people who are in foster care. We need to know what it's like, you know, really from real people who have been in the system. You know, what it's like for real. And my guest tonight, who I'll introduce you to in just a moment, is an advocate for youth in foster care because she has real lived experience. And she'll be answering those and other questions tonight. First, I just need to do one big hello to all the new students in the Bridges to Employment program. I am so pleased to welcome all of the new people into the program. It seems to be very destructive for a young person's mathematical ability to be in foster care. It seems like there's a direct relationship there between math, specifically math, and being in foster care and being in different schools and being in a situation where even a school that wants to do right, like maybe took the time to evaluate you and find out what you need and develop a plan for how to get you the things that you need. They don't have time to execute that plan because the child may have moved to another location before the plan is even finished, let alone developed. So I see that, and I see that in mathematics. And so as a result of that, I see young people who tell me they just hate math. That's sort of, their conclusion that they drew from their lived experience of having, sat through torturous mathematics classes where they didn't know what was going on and they just felt horrible. And the thing about the Bridges to Employment program is that that's okay. We understand all that. You work with one person, you're not in a classroom where everybody knows who doesn't know, and there's people there to make sure that they point out what you don't know. No, there's none of that stuff. Just one person, you work with a caring tutor virtually. And over time, you learn to find the joy in math and other subjects too. Because the thing is, there's a lot of money out there. And if you're serious about wanting to earn, if you want to be someone who earns money, there are ways to do it right now. You just need the education, and the Bridges to Employment program will get that for you. Okay. My guest tonight is Dr. Kay Kizer. Her life is a remarkable journey, shaped by her early experiences in foster care. Dr. Kizer, welcome to the Age Out Angels Radio Hour.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It's our pleasure. And so you have this lived experience of being in foster care. Can you talk a little bit about that? When did you start? What was it like?
Well, mine started while I was not even born yet, because my mother had already made a decision that she was not going to parent me. And so I was immediately given to the state of Michigan and was placed in the foster care system, and then just moved, from home to home, even as an infant, which I thought that was kind of interesting that babies even move. But yes, and then I ended up um, aging out, joining the army. Didn't really have that guidance that I needed, which I'm always concerned about kids today not having that guidance, that the wind in their sail. Someone needs to make sure that they're on target. And I wish someone would have done that for me, because I would have even went to college, or if someone would have shared that with me, but I didn't know.
Did you do well in school?
Actually, that was my best place to go. That was my safe place.
Yes, I knew that.
Because life was at home, was to me, was horrific. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't a place that I wanted to be. So growing up in Michigan, we really didn't even have snow days. Snows could be all the way up to our knees, and we would still have school, and I was always excited. But when I learned that there was a snow day, then I was disappointed, because it's like, okay, I got to stay at home.
I have found that the most successful adults who have been in foster care are the ones who use those exact words. School was my safe place.
Yes,
That's
yes,
important. So you grew up going from foster home to foster home to foster home.
I
And
did.
and so did you get moved from school system to school system?
Yes, I
So
did.
that
Which that's tough too, because you get accustomed to having some friends, and then you end up losing those people, that are, closest to you. So I have been a foster parent, so I always feel really sad for the children when they move from one school district to another, and they're the odd man out, because they come to the school and no one knows who they are. They're normally picked on, they're bullied, and those type of things really disturb me a whole lot.
Yeah, those are things that I think ultimately hurt a person's self-esteem. And that,
Yes.
and that has an effect, that has a sort of a long-term effect on your life. So let me ask you this. Do you remember from your years in growing up in foster care, do you remember any sort of like positive things? Were there any,
Hmm.
was there one home that liked you and then broke your heart when they took you away or something?
I wish I could honestly say that, but no, I don't. Um, I remember going and visiting one of my, like a family member who lived in Detroit, Michigan,
Yeah.
and she always made life a lot more comfortable. She would go out to the store and buy things that I like to eat, and Same thing with the grandparents. When I would go to Kalamazoo, Michigan, I remember my grandmother would always make sure I had money, to go to the ice cream truck, or if I wanted to go to the park. I had a lot less restriction being with those individuals. And I don't know if it was because they were older or maybe they were more compassionate. I don't know what it was, but those are the times that I remember to be pleasant. And those are things that I probably need to write, and even in my next book too.
When do the negative things stand out that much more?
They do, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I wish they didn't. I wish for every foster child that it could be so pleasant that they would have wonderful things to talk about.
That
I
it would be
really do.
equal. Just that it would be equal.
Yes.
They should be as dysfunctional as the rest of us, not more, not
Yeah.
constantly,
I agree with you on that.
not hyper vigilant.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I said to a group of people one time, I said, imagine you're having Thanksgiving dinner, that beautiful Thanksgiving dinner that you have, right? And on one side of the table are Eagles fans, and on the other side of the table are Giants fans. And it's Thanksgiving dinner, and all they want to do is bicker about which football team is
Hmm.
better. And
Hmm.
and the kids that I know, would give a finger to have a family as dysfunctional as that one,
Hmm.
that at
Hmm.
least comes together
That's
at,
true.
at that time of the holiday season. What were your holidays like when you were in the city?
Um, I remember just like getting a few gifts, nothing major. One of the things that I'm gonna say I disliked the most is that I didn't even have like a case manager that came out and would even offer some gifts also, because that's something that I see now, that a lot of foster children many times are blessed with gifts, even if the foster family doesn't do it. At least the children's division will do their part. But I just remember just getting a few items during the holiday.
Yeah, like not every year necessarily.
Not every year,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah. See, that's like doubly weird, not just because it's a holiday and you're not a part of it, but because I'll bet it seems like when you're not a part of it, everyone else is,
Right.
right? Like you're the
That's
only
true.
one in the world who
Right.
isn't.
Yes. And I don't even remember birthday parties either. um
No.
which is really unfortunate, because just because you don't belong to that family doesn't mean that they shouldn't take the time and go put a little bit more effort into making sure that this child celebrates their birthday. Just because they're not with their family of origin, at least do something special. Like I said, go that extra mile, make sure that that child feels that they're loved, and affirmed.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that hard to make someone not feel forgotten.
Right.
Right? Like you can do it with a cake. You can do it with, making them a special breakfast or something. I mean, it's
I agree. I
it's not
agree.
that hard to
No,
do it,
no.
right? So, did you get the feeling that the people who were raising you were like the ones who were in it for the money?
I feel that way. I really do. Because I remember growing up all these years and not even hearing the word I love you, which is kind of a normal thing. It should be. I mean, I have four grandchildren, one great grandson, and then, of course, I have three adult children, and I do whatever is necessary to make sure that they hear those words. I have a son that's 6'6", and I just love, even though I can't reach his head, but at least I can wrap around my arms around his waist and tell him that I love you. But he's real good about bending down to me.
That's awfully nice.
Yeah, so
I
I
mean,
think everyone needs to hear those amazing words. I love you.
uh, and you were born right into the heart of Motown to to not have experienced all that. is just not fair, you know? It's just not fair. Now, did you ever know why you went from foster home to foster home growing up, or did you have like self-blame?
No, I don't know the reason why I was moved. I have no idea. I mean, that's a part of the puzzle that I don't have an answer to.
Would it happen suddenly?
Um,
Did you know it was coming?
well, I'd say it was suddenly. You know, a lot of foster families, you know, they're not thinking about that child and what that child's going to feel like being their life being interrupted like that and just pulling them. So there's so many things that are broken with the foster care system. I tell you, it really is. It doesn't make sense even for a child to sit in a caseworker's office and she's making all these phone calls to all these different foster parents. And that child more than likely is sitting on the side of her or him. And, you know, they're hearing the phone, you know, they're hearing the rejection of all these foster families that are saying, no, I can't take that child. And so that's another part of the puzzle, too, that children don't need to experience. You know, when that worker is making those phone calls, that child should be nowhere around, you know. But I don't think the adults are really thinking about how they're adding even more trauma to that child, you know, listening to all those no, 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 you know, I can't take that child.
You heard all those phone calls, didn't you?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're telling me this from your own personal experience. Wow. You don't think of that degree of nuance if you don't have the experience.
So true. And
Yeah.
then I've had foster children that came to my home telling me the same thing, that they were sitting with their case manager and the case manager's making all those phone calls. And like they would say, oh, well, Miss K, you're the only one that said yes, you know. And sure enough, the case manager, it didn't matter what time of the night, you know, they're bringing that child to you with their items. And unfortunately, they're placed in a trash bag. They're not even nicely brought their items. They end up just being in a bag,
Yeah.
all their personal items.
Yeah. I mean, just every little tiny detail that fuels the notion that you are somehow less than.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
just these little teeny things, but they all kind of add up after a while.
Yes, they do.
And they must shape who you are. That's your lived experience at that point, right?
I agree with you on that. Yes, that's
So
what makes and molds us for sure.
yeah, well, can we take the blame back a level before that? Did you sense a personal blame for, like, were you one of those children in foster care who was hoping to put your family together?
Well, oh, you know, every child has that desire,
Yeah.
put families back together. So, um, and the families that I grew up in were very secretive. So there was no such thing as visits with the biological parents or anything like that. I didn't get to enjoy, I didn't get to experience that.
Did you
So,
want to? Did you want to? Was that
oh,
something
I
that,
would have. Oh, I would definitely.
yeah.
Yes, because every child wants to be with their parents, you know, no matter how chaotic life may be, you still want to be there. I didn't actually meet my biological mother until I was 36 years old.
Oh my.
Yeah. And then about, I want to say 4 years later, I met my biological dad. So the
That's
Lord, you know, He did open up doors for me to be able to meet these people. Because I would always look in the mirror and I was always wondering, like, who do I look like? Like, who are my parents? You know, I want to know.
yeah.
I want to know, you know, who do I look like? You know, and then I learned that my demeanor was very much like my biological dad. He was real soft spoken, didn't get angry. He didn't let things bother him. So it's like, okay, I know where that part of me comes from.
Just to have health records,
That
can,
too. That
yeah.
too. Yes.
can be really, really helpful. So, okay.
Yes.
So you met them separately then, yes?
I did. In 1996, I met my biological mom and was blessed to go to Las Vegas because that's where she was living at the time. She was dealing with an autoimmune illness, which of course I had been diagnosed with one in 2017, but I no longer have that. But now it helps me to understand where it came from. So when I flew out to Las Vegas, I got to spend Memorial Day weekend with her, and that was my only person to person visit with her because she passed away in my birthday month, which is October. And prior to that, I didn't. My birthday wasn't important, but then when she passed away, then all of a sudden my birthday is important.
Yeah. So when she passed away, how did you take that?
I was hurt. I was disappointed with the Lord too because I said, "How is it that you would bless me to connect with her, to meet her, and then shortly after that, she dies, and I don't get to build a relationship with her. I don't get to know the real reason, why she chose, to put me in foster care. I didn't get to. There were a lot of questions that just were not answered. So I was disappointed.
Yeah, it's it. I've known kids who have gone to bed for 6 months,
Mm,
in a similar kind of situation. That's hard.
yes.
And but it sounds like she received you well.
Oh, she did. She really did.
And so did you say like why?
I didn't.
No?
I never asked her. I mean, we just enjoyed our weekend together, and I remember one of the beautiful things about the meeting her was she was looking in her closet to actually, I think she wanted to give me some clothes, and I just remember her kissing me on my forehead, and that was it was like it was a beautiful transformation in me, because I said, here it is. I didn't receive, the love, the affirmation, the anything from these adults that were my caregivers. And I said, here it is. I'm meeting my mom for the first time, and she kisses me on my forehead. So that's just a that's helping me to bring back memories. Oh my goodness, of that special weekend.
Yeah.
Something else I remember telling her too was on Saturday morning, she had prepared a meal for me, breakfast, and I was sitting there at her bar and watching her, just looking at her. And I told her, I said, I miss you, and I haven't even left yet. And I don't know if that was, I don't know where those words came from. I had no idea, that I wasn't going to see her again, but those were words that came forth. And it's like, wow, like, where'd that come from? But she, just accepted and received, what I had shared with her. But I thought that was just real interesting statement.
Yeah, well, it came from somewhere in your heart. That's what,
Yes.
right? Sorry, so before we get teary here, 4 years later, you meet your biological dad.
Yes.
Okay, and did you get to see him more than once? I mean,
I did. I did.
had a
Yes. I
relation.
remember how excited he was because my biological mom, she had not never told him about me. So he didn't know he had a daughter.
Whoa.
I know. Isn't that something? And so I remember how excited it's almost as if he was a 2-year old standing in line waiting to get some ice cream or something because he was determined that I wasn't going to pass up the driveway because I was coming in at night. And what he did is he sat in his car, turned the headlights on so that I would know which driveway to pull into. And I thought, wow, I said, this is some reception, just it was just absolutely exciting. I still remember that so beautifully as if it happened yesterday. And he was very receptive, very receptive.
And he never knew.
He never knew.
So did you like call him up and say, surprise?
No, what had happened was I took time to write to an address that he had when he was in college. And I said, I had even told the Lord, I said, well, Father, nobody lives at the same address for that many years. So I wrote the letter, I laid it on the kitchen table, and for I left it there for about a week. And then one day I just said, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and put it in the mail. And I said, if it comes back, it comes back. Well, the letter never came back because what had happened was the home had been rented out and he was the landlord. And so his renter called him and said, John, you've got a piece of mail here. And then that's how all of it began. And I remember that when he got that letter, he called me at my place of employment and he left a voice message. And do you know, I saved that voice message. Because I wanted to continue to hear his voice over and over and over. I know that sounds silly, but that's
No.
that's
Oh.
what worked for me. And then he actually called to verify that I was his daughter. He called I guess I'm not sure which office that's called, where all the birth certificates and all that is, that office. And sure enough, they were able to share with him that yes, that's your child.
So his name is actually on the birth certificate,
Yes.
and he didn't know
Yes.
it was there. Oh my.
Yes.
I think the strangest question that I have is, you were going to be in the system for life. Your mother was not going to raise you. She had made that determination.
Correct.
Why weren't you just put up for adoption immediately?
That I don't know. And I could have been. I mean, that was what my guess was, but when I look at my birth records, it doesn't say anything about, you know, placing the child for adoption. I just immediately went into foster care. And I'm sure the goal was for me to be adopted. That
Yeah.
was the intent. Because I remember one of my aunts that's still living, my one of my mother's older sisters, had shared with me that the plan was to just put me up for adoption and just believe that I was going to be a-okay and that was going to be perfect, and
Yeah.
they were going to put me with the right family, but it didn't work out that way.
Yeah. And that's, I might try to talk to a caseworker who was around back then, and find out what the tide was. I mean, there's a racial divide in that somewhere. Like now, you could be adopted by a white family. Then, highly unlikely.
That is so true. You're right.
Yeah. So the
You're right.
chances, the pool of adoptive parents would have been bigger, right?
Oh yes, definitely, I agree.
But then, but then you'd grow up with all the other issues. You can't, you can't avoid all the issues. The world's a
Not
weird place.
we never can. You're
You know,
right.
the world is a strange place. We do the best we
Yes.
can. That's why, see, this is why I believe that most people are truly good, because when you drive down the highway, you notice the person who's misbehaving.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it, right? Everybody else on the
Right.
highway is just trying to get to work or get home, or get to the supermarket and stay out of trouble. And you can,
That's right.
so I'm thinking most people are good,
Right.
you know, but at the same time, it makes me wonder how you stayed out of trouble, because you were certainly a candidate uh,
That
to
is true.
to be
I
adopted by the people who would do you no good.
That's true. But there was so much fear instilled in me, like I had received severe physical abuse by the families. And when a child is, and which I'm still trying to figure out, how can you be in foster care and be beat up by your foster family? I don't understand that, because you're not even supposed to, that's not one of the forms of discipline that's allowed or permitted. But there's a lot of foster families that do whatever they want, and they feel like they're going to get away with it. So, and like I said, there was no case managers. I didn't have anyone to come visit me and make sure, like, are you doing okay? Is there anything you need? And that's something I advise even case managers to, I know unfortunately they spend too much time with the adults and they don't spend time with the children. And the children have a voice. But if you're spending all the time with the foster parents and wanting to believe everything they say, you know, then the child is left out. It's almost as if they don't have a voice. So I believe honestly that because of the severity of the abuse, that's what made me not run and be out on the streets and get myself in trouble and get in a detention center. And because I could have been rebellious, but I wasn't. I just feared. I had too much fear instilled in me.
And the combine that with the safety of school,
That too.
so you had direction, you had a way to be productive, right? Um,
Yes.
yeah, 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 yeah. So as you got older, you began to participate more as an advocate for the people who are in care. And what what am I looking at here? K's carry on.
Yes.
So when did you found K's carry on? It's all the C's. That's the only reason
Yeah,
I
I
say it. But
understand.
it's
Yes.
not that hard K sound. Sorry,
Yes.
carry.
I
Got confused.
because I'm an Army veteran, I was blessed to go to a women's veteran retreat in Galveston, Texas, and they kept us all week, which was really nice. We had a personal chef. I mean, we were really taken care of very well. We also had a counselor that we would be blessed to sit with several days out of the week with that same counselor. And so on my third visit, I remember speaking. We got on the conversation of my childhood, and I just remember that it was just real rough um, to get that conversation going because I had shared with her about how there was an adult that a grown man who actually would sexually abuse me, and no one. I couldn't say anything to anybody because it was like the mother's nephew, and that was her favorite nephew. So there was no such thing as going and saying anything or saying this is what's going on. So I just remember just life. I don't know. It's just absolutely um, horrific when I go back and look and think about some of those situations.
Sure.
Even
If you had said something, he would have said you're a liar. Who
exactly,
who would have been believed?
he would have, but
Correct.
I would have been severely beaten though,
Yes.
because it's like, why are you lying on him?
Branded
Yes,
the troublemaker.
right, exactly. So during that session with the counselor, I remember um, we had got on a topic about how my items were like placed in trash bags and self-esteem all the way down to the floor, and um, just some of the feelings that I was feeling on that particular day. And I ended up getting this amazing thought while I was sitting there talking to her about finding a way to secure children's personal items when they come into care. Because even the homeless don't carry a trash bag. And even when I joined the military, they gave me a rucksack. Everything was packaged real nice. Not that there's anything fun about joining the military, but I just think about the decency of how they packaged our items together, everything that we needed when we came joined the military. And so the thought came to me about, and I know that this had to be the Lord because I did not come up with this idea on my own. And it was about making sure that children had dignity, hope, and respect, and that they would be able to have their own brand new piece of luggage, and it had to be on wheels. And so it's like, yes, the child's going into foster care, but can't we do this decently? Can't we do things in order? Can't this be a great memory in regards to how the children keep their personal items, and it's not going to be in a trash bag? And so, sure enough, that's where Kay's Carry On came on, because I thought, well, gosh, even adults go to the airport or the train station, trailways to get on the bus. You got to have a piece of luggage. You can't check in trash bags. You can't have that person behind the counter saying, excuse me, ma'am, like, we don't check in trash bags. You have to literally have like a piece of luggage. Doesn't have to be on wheels, but it's gotta be more secure than a trash bag. So that's where that creative idea came from, was my Heavenly Father. I didn't come up with it. And then I just picked it up and ran with it because I was excited. And I even went online, even while I was at the retreat, because I wanted to know who else is doing this for children. Who else cares that a child doesn't feel like trash, which is what that trash bag represents.
Yeah, yeah. I remember there was one other that I knew of like several years ago. I don't know if they're still doing it or not. I think
Uh-huh.
maybe they were in New York State or something. And so did you then acquire a lot of suitcases and distribute them? Is that the plan, or were you doing an awareness campaign?
I was primarily at that time an awareness. And
Mhm.
then that's when several ministries heard about what I was doing, and they would go out and get brand new luggage, and they would have their own luggage drives,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
was pretty amazing. I mean, it was the first time somebody delivered, like, I want to say close to maybe 75 pieces of luggage. And it's like, wow, where am I going to store all this?
Yes,
So,
yes. I've been in that situation. Look how wealthy we are in whatever that item is. People are going to
yes,
be getting it. Please get to
yes,
them as quickly as possible because
that's
we're
right.
doing it.
That's right.
Though that's an okay place to be.
Oh, yes, it is. I agree.
As long as
I
you can,
agree.
as long as you can distribute it. Now, I was looking at your book, Faces of Foster Care, and I did not realize that that's actually your third book.
Well, this is our second, where I'm the visionary author.
Okay.
And the third book is coming out in 2024, at the beginning of 2024, because we want to have it ready for a conference that we're going to have in May, which is Foster Care Awareness Month.
Okay. And
So
that's the Faces of Foster.
yes, correct.
So tell me what the sort of what's the theme of that book and how it came about.
It is kind of like, I'm going to step back just a little bit, because I had been anticipating in anthologies with a publisher. Her name is Cindy Ann Rogers. And so she was coming out with these different anthologies, and I would participate, and I would give my chapter, and my chapter would consist of up to 3,000 words.
Right.
And so what was happening is I was sharing my story about being in the foster care system. So every time she came out with an anthology, I would add another segment, like a piece of it, and then another piece of it. However many books I was involved in. And then one day, I remember asking the Lord, and I looked up to the heavens, and I remember asking him, I said, I'm participating in all these anthologies. I said, may I have my own anthology? I said, but Father, it has to be where it only focuses on foster care, which means I don't take every author, because not everyone, it was, their lives were not touched by foster care. And then I was concerned about, like, where are these people going to come from? Because I don't know people who have been in the foster care system. Well, the only way I can describe how the authors came forth is like when Noah knew that he was going to get on the ark. And of course, our Heavenly Father did not have Noah go out and get the animals. That wasn't his assignment. His assignment was just to build the ark. And so I think about how the father is the one who brought forth all of those animals. And then, of course, two by two, they got on the ark. Well, that's what happened with volume one, because I didn't know anyone. And so one of my contributing authors said, well, Miss K, I'm going to introduce some people to you that I personally know that were in foster care. And then, they can make a decision on whether or not they want to write. And so, sure enough, each person wrote, and we ended up with 7 authors, which was pretty amazing. And then the
All people,
second,
all people with
and the,
lived experience.
that's right, all people who grew up in foster care or they were in the residential facility, um, juvenile detention, all those different routes, that children can come into. And then book two, of course, once book one came out, then everyone from book one started introducing more people, and we ended up with 17 authors. We were supposed to have 19, but 2 of them was unable to write and get their story turned in on time. And one of the authors for volume 3, he's actually the filmmaker. He wanted to do a film
Yeah.
with Faces of Foster Care, which I was just thrilled about. Like, because I did ask um, the father if we could be on the big screen. I said, there's other movies out there. I said, how about we bring about awareness about what's going on in foster care? And so, sure enough, a filmmaker says yes, and we're going to start probably in May or June 2024 filming for both books.
That sounds wonderful. Now, are there particular things that you find that all of the stories sort of have in common? Is there a common thread of foster care
Mm.
experience?
Just that separation of being, from their biological family, their siblings, because some speak about how their siblings were adopted, and they weren't. So I noticed that was the biggest thing, was just being separated from their biological family.
Yeah, yeah. One of the first people who came into Age Out Angels, I think, was one of like 5 or 6, and all of the other siblings were adopted.
Oh, yes.
Right? It's brutal. It is
It
just brutal. I mean, we all get that life is hard, and we all get that life isn't fair. We all understand,
right,
but life isn't fair used to mean, the umpire made a bad call when you were playing baseball. It didn't mean that you
right,
you got yanked out of your family, or that your family, put you in a position of abuse. It's the double abuse, I think, that really really grabs me. It's that when you're taken out of a family because of abuse or neglect, right?
hmm
And then placed with another family who then abuses and neglects you.
I agree.
And this is somehow a system. I wonder
And
to
these are our future adults.
Well, yeah, but to what extent? There's no stats on this, okay?
True,
To the
true.
what's the percentage of children who for whom that happens to, that they're pulled out of their family when maybe it wasn't even necessary, and put into a situation where they're then abused and neglected for the next 15 years. It, what's the actual number? Is is
Right.
is the system a total failure?
I would say they're not a total failure. I'm sure there's been some children that have went through the foster care system and they may not have anything negative to say about it whatsoever. They may have landed in the right family that loved them and adored them and thought they were all that and 2 bags of chips.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually met one of those foster mothers who said, that she fostered to adopt because she always wanted girls. She
Oh,
had
okay.
2 boys or 3 boys, and she always wanted girls. So they went through
Yes.
that, and then she adopted them, and they loved them, and they're all part of the family, and they're one happy family. For every story I hear like that,
Yes.
I hear 50 stories like yours.
I understand.
Now, is
Yes.
that just the people I'm hanging out with, or
I
um,
believe those could be the people that the Lord just draws to you.
that
That's
sense
what
to
I would
you?
think.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
They just,
you were talking about Noah. I always think about poor Noah's wife, who was watching all those animals come on and just look at it and say, this is going to be a mess. I hope somebody ordered the straw. You know,
so true.
it had to go that way. So, uh, did you learn something in particular from these books or from the stories that people wrote? Were their stories different from yours, or did it confirm what you always suspected?
Well, I would just say everyone's story was different. And it may be just the way that they've described it or explained it, but it's just the fact that they were in the foster care system. That by itself is like their life has been touched some way, somehow. There's some of my authors that grew up in residential facilities, and so they didn't even really um, be with families at all. They were just with a house parent who was in charge of making sure that everyone was safe. And that's about as close as they came to having, permanent adults in their lives.
Yes, in their lives at all.
Yes,
Hmm. Was there anyone who showed you any guidance? A guidance counselor. You liked school.
right. Um, I don't remember anyone pointing me in that direction in regards to school.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not really sure why not, but I do. I'm gonna say the last family that I was with, I remember them making a comment about, and it was real close to graduating from high school, and the comment was like, "You don't need to go to college, just get a job. Just go get a job."
They said that.
And to me, that's not good advice. I mean, everyone needs a job. You got the rest of your life to work a job, but while you're want to go to college, at least attempt it. Which is what I did. And then of course I kept going. I feel like even though that comment was made, one of the things I love is that I still pursued going to school anyway. Like I've learned to not just accept what people place in my ear gates, because we have to protect our ears. We have to protect what goes in them. And so I remember when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I actually asked my best friend to take care of my daughter that I adopted. And she was like right at 2 years old. And so she took care of her so I could go to my own graduation. And there was no one in the audience to how they cheer when they hear your name.
Yeah.
There was no one there. But I went because I needed to. It was for me. I was celebrating me,
Uh-huh.
regardless of who was out in the audience. And so I just felt like that was the best thing I could have done for myself. And then, of course, I continued to go to school.
Well, did you have trouble making attachments? That's a common theme that we get told a lot because what you said earlier about being moved around and you know not making friends and all that stuff. When you got to college, that's sort of a more permanent thing. Did you go to the
Yeah,
same school for 4 years?
I did. Yes.
Okay.
And
Right.
I don't really remember connecting with anyone. I was just determined that I was going to get my degree. And I found myself just really just being a loner. I was in the process of adopting my daughter, who is 21 years old now. And that was really my focus. And then I had my son, he was living at home with me also. He was like in high school. And so my focus was just on being a parent, doing my best to be a good parent,
And going to college at the same time.
and going to college at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I got to tell you, you were setting a heck of a model
I pray so. Yes.
for those kids. I
Yes.
mean, you really were. Yeah,
Yes.
because just unlike that last family that you mentioned that said, And I met a family about 5 or 6 months ago where in the background I heard them saying to the kid, "You're 16. What are you talking about school for? Go out and get a job."
Wow.
I said,
Yes,
"Okay, where is
yes.
it? Is this 1927?"
Oh my.
Because back then the economics of that might have worked,
Right.
but now the economics of that just simply don't work.
That's right.
You're 16. What do you need? School, go out and get a job is just the worst advice
It is. Oh
you know you
my.
you could possibly give
Well,
someone.
I pray that that 16-year-old defied the odds and paid attention to what was being spoken in their ears
Nope.
and said, guess what? They said what they said, but I'm still going to go to college.
No, no, no. Your mouth to God's ears, but no way.
Okay.
No. It's if you meet enough people who have been through this system and now they're 17, 18, 19 years old, a lot of them are very set in their ways and they've been raised to live life in a certain manner,
Right.
right? And
That's
I feel
true.
I feel like lots of times I'm suggesting that they should embrace a lifestyle that they can't even imagine.
Right.
Like they look at
Right.
me and they say, "What is it exactly that you want me to be?"
Mm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer to that is really easy. It's capable of navigating your way through the world and making enough money to not be homeless.
So
And you
true.
can, you know,
Right.
it's kind of
Right.
simple. I got to say, I don't agree with a lot of the way the structures are set up, but there's not a whole lot we can do about them.
Right.
So this is kind of what we have. So just tell me before we close out, what would you like to share with foster parents, with caseworkers? What do you want a caseworker, a foster parent who's hearing this show tonight to take home and say, okay, I'm going to do that from now on.
Right. Yes. Well, I'm going to say the caseworkers, I'm going to say do away with the trash bags. There has to be a more decent way to secure children's items and make sure that, they are, that the children are not sitting around listening when they're making these phone calls trying to place children, that they need to be somewhere where they're secure, but they don't have to be there to listen to those phone calls. And then to the educators, because I've worked with the school system, I say, do not sit in the teacher's lounge and talk about children. And the reason I say that is because I've heard adults conversing about children and their behavior, and they'll make comments about whether or not they're a foster child or, what's going on at home. And see, with me being a substitute teacher, they don't know who I am. And so they're holding a conversation, and guess what? The child that you're talking about could be my foster child. So the educators need to pay attention to where they're holding these conversations. Do not have them in the teacher's lounge. Like if you want to talk to another teacher, you go in that teacher's classroom, you close the door, and it's you and those teachers. So, just being discreet and confidential, and um those are things that, and I would love to get inside of several of the schools and just educate them on, what they're saying and what they're doing, and so they don't continue to do it. And apparently there's not anyone who's catapulting them into saying this is, we're not doing this, like this is not acceptable. That's what principals and um, the educators, even superintendents, whoever's in charge of all of that, making sure that those teachers are trained properly. And then for foster parents, number one, I'm going to say stop calling them your foster child. Just call them by their name. No one wants to, no, that's embarrassing. And the reason I say that, I was teaching in a school not too long ago, and I remember one student talked to another student about, oh, that's your foster mom. Do you know the young man was so embarrassed?
Yeah.
Like, guess what? Nobody needs to know that.
Yeah.
Don't say that out loud in a classroom, because he was trying to defend himself on the person that he lives with. And I don't feel like children need to be trying to defend. Like, I live where I live, but please don't, rub it in my face. Um, I also want to say to foster parents, because I know that this has happened. Like when you have your meal, do not separate the children and have them sitting somewhere else. Like all the foster kids sit at another table,
Yeah.
and you and your family, the husband, the wife, and their biological children are sitting at a table enjoying their meal, but the child over there those children are separated. That's a no-no. They're already dealing with trauma. Their little minds are going constantly, you know, when they're at school. That's why they act up, because they don't know what to do with the fact that I've just been removed from my family of origin, my dad, my mom, my grandmother, my aunt, whoever they were living with, and now they're at school. And now they're the class clown, and now the teacher wants to put them out. She don't know nothing about that child and not taking time to get to know who they are. But when I teach, when I see there's a class clown, I make them my teacher's helper. I just ask them, like, would you like to help me today? Like, I've not been in your classroom before and I sure could use your help. And so once they know that they're the teacher's helper, all that foolishness comes to a halt. And they may be trying to figure out, like, why is this teacher doing this? But I recognize it immediately. It's like, okay, if you're going to act up, no, we're going to have a good day. And I said, I'm even going to leave a good note for your teacher for you being my helper. So they'll see the note. I'll make sure they read it. There's a way to do things even in the classroom so that it is a continuous learning environment.
Oh,
We don't have
sadly,
to let the class clown take over.
I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. Sadly, that's all the time we have
Yes.
for tonight.
Yes.
You are inspiring. You are resilient. You're just when your mother decided not to raise you, she missed out on an amazing experience.
I've had several people say the same thing.
So,
Yes.
wow. So cool. That's
Yeah.
just so neat. No, I don't really have any final words tonight. I just wanted to say happy holidays to everyone. I hope you stay safe. It's a weird time, so many people killing so many other people.
Mm.
And the weird part about it is that even though it might not be happening right in front of us in our own backyard, um, when we hear about it, every day, every single day, when we hear about it on the news, it still has an effect on us. And so the only thing that I want to say is when you're enjoying your holiday meals, because I'm not going to see any of you again until January 8th, New Year's Day is actually a Monday. So our show is Christmas Day and New Year's Day. They're not going to happen. So I'll see you on January 8th. Then after that is Martin Luther King Day. So one show on January 8th, and then we'll be back January 22nd. Um, I just got to tell you, I'm beside myself happy that we were able to close out the year with Kay Kizer. I just honestly found out about her just a few days ago. And what a treat. What a treat this has been. So, an excellent way to close out the year. Just be safe, everyone. Stay away from violence. It's the best advice I think one human being can give another. Okay? So I'll see you all in the new year. Thanks to our producer, Robin, to my guest, Kay Kizer, to our engineer, Ruben. Thank you all for another wonderful, wonderful year. 243 shows we've done. 244 when we come back in the new year. And thanks as always to Mozart. I don't know why he works for us. He must need the money. Stay safe, everyone. Until January. Remember, it's still only Monday. There's plenty of time to make this week the best week ever.
Happy
Good night,
holidays,
everyone.
everyone.